First time doing this, let's have some fun. Okay. Hello everyone, welcome to the ChiMia YouTube channel. I'm Jack, one of the two owners of ChiMia, and today I'm going to be working on a new release, hopefully for Saturday sale, this coming 14th of April, 17th of April I believe. And I just wanted to do a little Substance Painter tutorial because I felt like it, and I thought it would be a cool way to show the customers how we make our products, and also show perhaps budding creators how they can go about working in Substance Painter, because you can get it quite cheaply on a monthly basis, the indie license. I can't remember quite how much it is, but it's a bit pricey, but it's still not too bad. So I've opened up Substance Painter here. As you can see down here, I've got a little list detailing out what we're going to be going through. Might not completely go in line with it, but we'll see how it goes. So first of all, we're going to talk about document creation for Second Life. So when you open up Substance Painter, you've got this massive list of templates. Now these templates, what they basically do, they set up the shader and the maps that the document will have. So a lot of people go in and use PBR metal roughness. What I would suggest doing is either going for PBR specular glossiness, or just because I'm used to it, I use V-Ray material specular glossiness here. Now this is because in Second Life we use specular and glossiness maps rather than metalness and roughness maps. Okay, now to make sure we can get as much detail as possible while not making everything super heavy, I'm putting the document resolution at 2048. You can only upload into Second Life at 1024, but 2048, I use that and it will size down. I upload as 2048 and Second Life automatically sizes it down to 1024. And the thing is, a lot of people, I'm going on a lot of tangents here, I'm sorry, but a lot of people, when they upload to Second Life, they'll go into Photoshop, they'll take their 2048 textures and they'll downsize them to 1024, and then they'll upload that to Second Life. But what happens there, I think people have looked into it, I can't remember where I saw it on Plurk or something, but what happens there is you're putting the image twice through the JPEG calculation processing thing. So I think apparently the best way to do it is to take a 2048 PNG directly from Substance Painter and then put it into Second Life. So PNG 2048 or TGA file, and put that into Second Life, and then you've only got one process of transferring it into JPEG. I don't know why, but apparently that works well. So what we're going to start off with, we're going to be texturing some wood. So I've got this sideboard here that I'm going to load in. These settings are all okay. You don't want to use their UV mapping or anything like that, because hopefully you don't want to use their UV wrapping because hopefully you'd have already set that up. So when you load up Substance Painter, you've got your 3D viewport over here, your 2D viewport here. Okay, just going to size that down a little bit. Okay, now the first thing I do, I make sure that all my textures have been imported. We've got the front, we've got the knobs, misses, we've got the shadow, top, bottom, and the walls. So next thing, we're going to want to have a look at our environment map. So what I do, I've stolen this idea from Mailio over at the Secret Store of creating a two-sided panorama. So what this does, this projects the light onto the object. And by making it two-sided, that means I've got light behind, a little bit of light on the sides, and light on the front, top. It's all a bit more even. If I just put the original, you can see how it's very much just one-sided, which is okay for some uses, but in Second Life I think it's better to make sure that, I don't know in what situation someone would want to put a sideboard in the middle of a room, but in those situations they'd be able to put it in the middle of a room and the back would still be lit. So let's get on to the next bit, which is baking maps for Second Life. So if we open up the texture set settings, scroll all the way down, you get this section for mesh maps. And now these mesh maps, they basically drive how Substance Painter calculates your materials, textures, etc. So going into the settings, we're going to choose 2048, same as our document size. Now I haven't got a high poly mesh to bake down details onto the low poly, so I haven't got a complicated mesh to bake down onto the simple mesh that I'll upload in Second Life. I've just imported the simple mesh, so I don't need the normal map and I don't need an ID map, but an ID map can be very useful because it can allow you, if you set it up correctly in your modeling software, you can have a little colorful ID map generated that helps you select parts of your mesh, but I don't need that. I've not set it up for that, so find help for that in another tutorial. So, ambient occlusion, one of the most important ones for giving the object a bit of shading. I'm setting the secondary rays all the way up to maximum to make it nice and pretty. I'm setting up the ground plane, and what that does, that basically makes it, when it calculates the ambient occlusion, it's as if it is basically shooting light from every single direction possible, and then it basically calculates where the light doesn't hit as much. So where the light hits, it's white, where it doesn't hit, it's black, and it generates a shading thing. So what happens, because all these rays bounce and such, when you have a ground plane, it basically means that you get shading as if a thing was on a floor. Without that, it would look as if there was light coming up from the floor. So I had the ground plane, that adds a bit more detail. Curvature, now this is what we use to give some details to the edges, into the crevices, that sort of thing. So I'm gonna do this up all the way to there, and I'm just gonna double check that I applied to all there, yeah. Put that all the way up to the top, apply to all, okay. Position, don't need to change anything there. Thickness, that's a map that basically tells you where the mesh is thicker. I use this normally to help with, alongside the curvature map, to drive some edge details, dust, that sort of thing. So we're gonna put that up to max as well and apply to all. So here you go, this is all ready to go. Because my recording software doesn't like it when I tested, my recording software did not like it when I started baking textures. I am going, because my tiny little laptop, bless it, it's very, it has trouble. It's a poor little thing, it struggles. So it takes a while to bake maps. If you've got a good computer, Substance Painter is very quick on baking maps, but if you've got a laptop like mine, what I normally do, I take this as a sign from the universe that after only 1 minute of working, I just have a break. So I'm going to go have a break and I'll be back with you in a moment. Okay, welcome back. So I've had my little break and now we have all our maps over here, nice and baked. So if you're in Substance Painter, you can press B, use B to cycle through all the different maps. So here we've got the ambient occlusion maps. You can see in all the crevices, it's all nice and dark. It's all shaded inside. Lovely. Then you've got the curvature. You can see how it highlights the edges. Okay, all the edges nicely, all very nice. That looks about right to me. Also, when you zoom in, if you press F, it'll zoom you back out, frame the object. Got all the edges there, lovely. Position, it's a bit of an odd one, but basically just shows where the object is positioned, where each part of the object is positioned. That can be useful for dust, anything that depends on the side of the object, things like that. Thickness, this one can look a bit odd in situations like these where things they don't have the same thickness uniformly in a uniform way. And normal, nothing on there. World space normal, that's another sort of thing that says in what direction. So on the top it's green, this side it's blue, this side it's kind of orange, there's red, there's that green. I'm a bit colorblind. Pink over here. And I think that's all of them. So press M to go back to material mode. So next up, we are going to start texturing the object. So let's start with the front. Here's another tip. If you want to switch easily between your texture sets, you just go Ctrl-Alt and then right-click, I believe, or yep, Ctrl-Alt, right-click, and you can switch between. So let's start off with the front. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go down into the shelf. I'm in materials, and I'm going to look for a nice wood. So let's have a look. We're going to try a few different ones, see how it goes. Let's start off with a nice teak wood, see how that looks. Not quite sure about this teak. First we're gonna have to change the direction, turn on the normal map. Let's have a look at the presets. So we've got a lacquered plain cut, shiny varnished, crown cut, satin varnished live cut. Let's try satin varnished live cut. Let it load. Okay. That could be okay. So what I'm going to do, we're going to rotate 90 degrees. Very important. What I always do in my modeling application, I use 3ds Max. When I'm setting up the UV map for an object, I usually know if it's going to be, so for example, a wood material or anything else. When it's a wood material, I'm going to show you the 2D map here. I always make sure to have all the pieces running in the same direction, so that when I apply a wood material, the wood grain is running in the right direction. Because that's one of the things. If you've got the wood grain running in the wrong direction, that can really show off that it's not real. It doesn't look very real. So I'm going to scale this about 3 times, I think. Okay. Not bad. Now, okay, the lighting. Now, you can cycle through your different channels, diffuse, specular, and glossiness by using the C key. I normally do that to check that everything's looking correct, and then M to switch back. So what I'm thinking is, it doesn't matter too much how the wood looks underneath, because I'm planning to make this a painted object. So what I want to make sure is that the material I use has good height material. So I'm going to go onto the normal height plus mesh. You can see we've got some details here. You can kind of see it's very subtle, but that's the height information. And if I create a little paint layer, here, you can see a little bit better how the height information is pushing through the layers. But I feel I might need to layer on top another wood just to bring in a bit more details. So I believe this might be a good one for height information. I'm not sure. We'll have a look. Okay. Wrong way around. What I'm going to do, I'm going to turn on height and normal and turn off everything else. And then rotate 90 degrees. Ooh, rotate 90 degrees. And we'll go 3 as well for this one. Scale by 3. And then I'm going to turn it on and off and ask myself why the diffuse is not disappearing. There we go. So I think we've got to go a bit smaller. So 4. Okay, we've got a lot more detail here, but now it's a bit too rough. So what you can do, go down here, choose your height map, and then that basically decides what you're controlling with the layer styles, or the can't remember what these are called. All these, you know, multiply, overlay, that sort of stuff, and the opacity. So if I bring the opacity down, it'll... Ooh. So the normal map is already given quite a bit. So I'm going to leave the height at 6. I'm going to look at the normal, and we're going to bring that down maybe to 75. So turn that on and off. So that has made the specular a bit weird. But if we have a look between the two, so you can see here how glossiness is a bit odd. Let's have a look at the glossiness map. Okay, that's why the glossiness looks a bit weird. Okay, there we go. So I think this is a good wood to be starting off with. Okay, I think might go back and change it. This part of the tutorial is going to be a bit all over the place because this is how I work. It's very much, you've got to have fun with it. You've got to be a bit creative with your texturing. So let's take that back to diffuse and let's start making this look as if it was painted. So I'm going to press Alt, click on diffuse. That isolates it to only diffuse. We are going to start off with a nice, let's go for a nice deep burgundy-ish red, I think. That would be quite nice. I think that could look quite nice. Now, I'm just going to have a look at the glossiness because I want there to be some variation between the paint because I'm going to use a mask to peel away the paint a bit. So I want there to be some variation between the glossiness of the wood and the glossiness of the paint, and the same with the specular. So I want the paint to be a bit more reflective and a bit more glossy. So if we go into the specular, let's add a specular, and we're going to bring that up just a little bit. Okay, just there, I think. And I'm going to go into shader settings, and I'm going to bring the IOR up to 5. That basically makes it a bit more reflective. IOR, that's the index of refraction. What normally happens in 3D is, depending on the angle you're viewing it from, the reflections can be a bit different. So to make sure that it's all a bit more even, and so it reflects from all angles, I bring the IOR up, and then I don't really know why, but I like it. So we're going to turn on the glossiness as well, and we're going to see how that goes. So bring the glossiness to about there, I think, and I'm going to bring the specular down just a tad. Maybe glossiness up a little bit. Okay, so here we've got a nice glossy paint on the wood, which I quite like. I'm going to have a little look at the 2D texture, see how that looks. I think we're looking good. We're looking good here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to have a look at masking our paint. So I know I've completely gone off the list down below me, but you know, sometimes it's got to be done. So what I'm going to do, I've added a black mask to our paint. That means it's completely disappeared. Rename the file. Now we are going to right click on the mask, add generator. Now you do have down here in Substance Painter, down in the shelf under smart masks, a load of different masks that you can use. Just slide on, drag and drop on top of a file, and that works really well for a lot of cases. But what I like to do, I like to add a generator, add a mask editor generator, and I like to set up my own mask. So, because then you can mix between all the different stuff and you get a bit creative with it and get exactly the look that you like. So let that load on up. So when you open up the mask editor, you've got a load of different drop downs and options. Okay, so you've got the blur, the balance, and contrast. I'll come back to those near the end because I tend to fidget with those afterwards. To drive the mask, you can have two different textures: the Ambient Occlusion Map, the Curvature, the World Space Normal, the Position Gradient, the Thickness, and Micro Details. So, what I'm going to start off by doing, I'm going to have a look at getting the Micro Details set up. What you need for that, you need to add an anchor point to the material that you want to grab details from the height and the normal map. I'm going to use this second wood that I added on for the height information, so that we can peel away or leave more paint in the cavities of the wood, that sort of thing. So I've added a anchor point, and then what you do, you go back to your mask editor, and you can turn on your micro height and your micro normal, and scroll down here, add in your anchor point for the barkless tree wood, choose the reference channel. The reference channel for the micro normal is of course going to be normal, and for the micro height it's going to be the height channel. So there we go. Now this is going to look a bit weird for a moment if I just reload it, and I'm going to go C, until I get to mask. So there you can see we've got the height information as part of the curvature. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go up to curvature. We're going to invert. Yes, I think so. So if we go back to material, you can see the red is starting to come through, but not quite. So I want a bit less of these micro details. So I'm going to turn down the curvature intensity to 2. I'm going to turn on and off to see a bit closer. Okay, there you can see we're seeing a bit more of the original curvature on the edges, such as here, and less so of that. I'm going to turn down the depth of the ambient occlusion of the micro, height, and normal. Okay, here we go. So what I want this to be a bit more powerful, so I'm going to turn this all the way up to 1 and see how it looks full on. Okay, so that's definitely more what we're looking for. We've got to drive it even further, but for now this is looking okay. Not looking great, but it will get there. So we're going to add some grunge texture now. So I'm going to turn this up all the way up and scroll down here, and we're going to choose a nice grunge material that we can add on there. This looks paint scratched. I think that sounds quite good for our paint. Let's add that, turn on and off. So it's not coming through very well, but you can see it kind of here. You see those scratches. What we're going to want to do, we're going to want to go into texture, scale it up a little bit, and I've got some scratches. Okay. Now, what I want to do is work in the ambient occlusion next. So we turn the ambient occlusion on. We can see what that gives us. Okay, here we go. So you've got the ambient occlusion. Currently the ambient occlusion is multiplied on top. So where it's shadow, it's putting in black. If I hadn't said before, I don't think I did, when you're making a mask, what is white is shown and what is black is hidden. So where it's black, say for instance, if we look down here, this black bit here, if I switch to the material, you can see that it's a lot less red. Okay? What I want to do is I want to keep the paint out of the crevices and that such, but I don't want it to this point. So we're going to bring the balance up a bit, a fair bit. Okay, so maybe a little bit less. 0.8. Turn it on and off again. Okay. I think that's okay. So, starting to get some good details in here. So, what else can we add? We could play with the thickness. I think I want to bring down the intensity of the micronormal even more. Yes. So, I feel this. I'm not sure if I like how this is going. I'm just going to... I think I'm going to invert the curvature again, just see how that looks. Okay. Okay. So yes, this way round. We want the curvature this way round because we want the paint more on there. But now we're going to have to start bringing in some more of the details. So let's see. If we go back to the texture, it's currently on overlay. Let's see how it looks if we do a linear dodge. That's going to add. Okay, yeah, so that's bringing it up a lot more there. Okay, I like the look of that. Okay, let's have a look at the material. Okay, I think this is doing good. We'll have a look at the diffuse. Okay, so it's still a bit too much worn down, but it's getting there. So we're going to go back to the mask, and we're going to start playing with the global stuff. So if we bring the balance up, it's going to brighten it up overall and bring in more of our texture. As you can see there. Turn it on and off. So there we go. So if we go back to diffuse, you can see how a lot more of it is red, a lot more of it is painted, but you've still got a bit of the wood peeking through. So I think I'm going to bring it down just a tad, I think, and we'll leave it maybe at 7. Oh. Yes, there we go. So now we've got the wood coming through, and I think that's looking okay. Yes. Okay, next thing we're going to do, we're going to add some shading to this part. So above the paint, I'm gonna just add in brackets burgundy, because I'm probably going to do some different colors. And to add dirt, we're going to start off, we're using the same kind of technique. We're going to start off, we're going to get some diffuse, go in with black, let's put in some specular. We're going to bring that all the way down, because what we want when we apply dirt, we want it to make it reflect a lot less, and we're also going to bring down the glossiness. So we're going to add a black mask again. Go over to mask, and we're going to add a generator, add the mask editor, and we're going to have some fun with this. Not too much fun, but just a little. So we are back in our favorite little mask editor. We're going to get rid of curvature because that has nothing to do with it, and we're going to bring ambient occlusion all the way up. So, oh, it's not liking me. Come on. So we're going to put it on normal, and it should show up. There we go. Here we've got our ambient occlusion map. Because white makes things appear, we need to invert it. So there you go. So now all the bits that are shaded are brighter, and all the bits that are unshaded are black. So then when you go to material, you can see it's all a bit more shaded in the dark areas there. It shows up a bit more in diffuse. You can see it there. There you go. So that would be okay just for a first little bit, but what we want to do, we want to add a bit more interest. So what we're going to do, we're going to go back to mask, and we're going to add in a grunge texture. So bring the texture all the way up, and let's have a look. So I don't want to use the same one again, don't want to repeat myself. Plaster damage, I think that could work quite well, so I'm going to work that one in. So turn that on and off. So you can see here in the shade is being a bit more extended because of the grunge being overlaid. Don't want to turn that up. I'm going to go back to the texture, and I am going to texture. There we go. I'm going to scale it up a bit. Let's try 2. See how that looks. Okay, yeah, that's looking nice. See how it looks on the material. Looking nice and shaded, because it doesn't quite show up too much because it's only very subtle. But yeah, it adds a bit more interest to it. Okay. What we could also do is go back to our old faithful, the micro details, turn those on, link in the anchor point from the wood. So set that one to the normal, set that one to the height, and let's have a look. Okay, that's a bit too powerful. If we go back onto the diffuse, you can see not very realistic at all. Oof, no, that's a bit too unrealistic. So we're going to have to bring that a lot down. So I'm going to go into the settings for the micro details. I'm going to turn completely off this curvature intensity. Okay, reload it. Yeah. I'm going to put the height intensity down to 0.1 to start off with. We'll see how that looks. Hasn't changed much, so we're going to go into the AO settings. So I'm going to change the depth to 0.01 start off with. Okay, let's see if we can push that even lower because it's still a bit too powerful. 0.005. Okay. This is looking a little better. Let's have a look at that. Okay. Still a bit too powerful for my liking, but that can be fixed. We will push this down even further. Let's say 0.2. Reload. Okay. I think this could be a good, very good dirt map to be working with. Okay. Here we go. And then if we look through the different maps, so diffuse, specular, you can see how between the dirt map, with the dirt map and the paint map, we've got a bit of variation going on here. Glossiness, same thing again. A lot of variation going on, which makes it very nice when you've got the materials set up in Second Life, lights passing by, zooming around, all that sort of stuff. The interest can make it look a lot more realistic and interesting. So I think this is good for now. What we're going to do, we're going to go back here and we're going to add another layer. Go back here, add another layer. We're going to add some edge details. So just going to rename this to dirt, this to edge details. So this one, I just want to highlight the edges a bit. So I'm going to put it into full white diffuse. Bring that up a bit. And I'm going to bring that down a bit. And then what we're going to do, we're just going to change the diffuse to overlay. And then the specular to overlay as well, I think. See how that looks. Bring it up a little higher so the overlay has some effect. And we'll do the same with glossiness, and we're going to let them, we're going to go glossiness, change that to overlay as well. So with this bit, we're gonna, you can guess it, add a black mask, add a generator, and pick the mask editor. For this one, we're mainly going to be working with the curvature. When it loads up, here we go. Go over to the map. Got the curvature here already. So let's put that all the way up to max. And then I'm also going to add the ambient occlusion keep it set to multiply. So then it's adding, it's got absolutely nothing in the shaded bits. So make sure that's on multiply. Yeah, lovely. So we'll see how this looks on the material. So that's how it's brightened it up a bit too much. It's not really highlighting the edges. So what we want to do, I'm going to go up to the balance, put this, say, 65, and we're going to increase the contrast. So the contrast is going to bring it more highlighting into the edges. I think we can bring the balance down a bit and hype up the contrast. In these situations, it really is just a case of playing with the parameters and seeing what you end up with, what you like. So here we go. I think this highlights the edges quite well. If we go into material, look at, turn it on and off, turn it on and off, turn it on and off. I think the glossiness is a bit too high. So we're already on glossiness, so I can just turn the opacity down just a tad. There we go. I think that adds a bit more interest. The light catches it a bit better. Yeah. Okay, so here's the front done in one color. And what we're going to do, teach a little trick. We're going to do a cheeky little trick. We're going to grab everything here. We're going to right click, group layers. Now, give it a moment, because my laptop is nice and slow. Here we go, we've got it all layered. Gonna name it sideboard wood and paint. Then if ever your textures glitch like this, normally all I do is I have to turn one layer on and off and it will fix it back to normal. Okay, so we've got this done for one side. We're going to transfer this onto the other sides that are made of wood. So you right click, instantiate across texture sets, and we don't need it on the knobs, we don't need it on the shadow, we need it on the top and the bottom and the walls. So if you do that, that will basically create instances of that folder. So whenever you change it in here in sideboard front, it will repeat it onto all the other textures. Okay, give that a moment to load. You can see the height details are coming in here. Lovely jubbly. Oh, okay. See, sometimes this happens where I have not foreseen very well. You can see here the wood grain's going in the wrong direction. So, this one's fine on the walls. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to turn it on and off, and that should make it appear very nicely. So when you're looking in the 3D view, the highlights can seem quite very powerful there. But when you look in the 3D view, it's not as much. It's a lot cleaner. So what we're going to need to do is we can leave the walls as they are, I believe. I think that looks fine. We're going to go onto top and bottom. Or we're going to go onto front first of all. We're going to copy our folder and just paste it normally into the top and bottom bit because it's running the wrong way. So I need to edit the wood map. So we're going to delete, paste layers, boom, 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 boom. Give it a moment. I'm going to try and edit out all the bits where it's loading if I don't talk in the middle of them or if it's not awkward. So we're going to go rotate 90 to false. I believe this one didn't have an option for rotating, so I'm just going to go back and fix it at the top. Go up here. There we go. Set that back to 0 on rotation. And we should have a lovely wood that's running in the right directions. Ooh. There we go. So here we go. Here's our sideboard, all nice and textured. Now, If we wanted to, we could go a bit more interesting with this. We could set different colours up and all that jazz. For now, we're just going to work with this burgundy. Okay, so now we've got all the wood done, I am going to move on to the metals. So we've got the knobs of the doors and the drawers here. See, they're all unwrapped here. So what we're going to do, we're going to go into materials. And I'm just going to start off with a nice brass. Oh. Now, when it comes to metals, if you don't know already, I'm going to run on the assumption that you don't know. When we're working with metals, diffuse is always black, nearly always black, because the blacker it is, the more it reflects in the specular glossy workflow. Okay, so say if I brought this all the way up to white, this would no longer look like a metal, okay, because there's too much color in it. But then when I bring it down to black, it starts looking more like a metal. Okay, specular controls how light is reflected, and glossiness is how sharp or how blurry the reflections are. So I normally start off quite sharp on the glossiness because we're gonna cheat a bit. Don't tell anyone. We're gonna go back to the sideboard and we're gonna steal the dirt and the edge details, and we're gonna pinch them, use them for our knobs. So let those load in. See how they come out. See, this adds a bit more interest. I'm gonna go into the masks and go into the masks. Dirt mask first of all. Here we go. So bring that size down like that. So you can see it's a bit too high up there, but I mean, I think it's okay actually. I think we need the shadow in here, and I like to think over the years where people have sort of turned the knob, pulled the knob, they've reached their hand round, it's going to be a lot more worn out. So where we've got the dirt, remember we set it so that the glossiness and the specular was a lot lower. So where you've got this white bit, it's going to look very worn out and used. And that's the kind of look I like to go for with my stuff. Worn out and used. And then let's have a look at the edge details. So with, without. See how the mask looks. Mask looks. Okay, so this is a bit sharp, and I think here we're going to want some texture. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring down the contrast. So it looks like that. Lovely. I'm going to bring the blur up to 2, I think. 0.2. Maybe let's just drag it up to there. Okay, that's a bit too blurry. Bring it down here. It's really a case of playing. So here we go. This, I think, looks a lot better. Now, what I'm going to do, I am going to add some scratches to this. I'm going to grunge. I'm going to add a texture and go all the way down. And scratches, grunge, scratch. So I think this map will do okay. I'm going to turn it on and off, see how it looks. This needs... Now, see, the thing is, you can see it's also blurred the layer, which is not what we want, not what we want at all. So, we've got the texture. I'm going to scale it by 2 and see how that looks. Okay, now what I want to do, I want to blur, I want the curvature blurred, but not the texture. So, go into curvature, and I'm going to bring out the ambient occlusion because that might be blocking out the curvature a bit. Oh no, we need the ambient occlusion. Bring that back. Bring that back right now. Okay. So I'm going to take off this sharp, fine parts of it. Okay, I'm going to play with these a bit. It's soft. Brings out different parts of it. It's not making too much of a difference. Okay. Let's see how it looks. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it looks okay. Okay. Maybe we need to take a bit more away with the. Shall we try? Let's try multiplying with the scratches. Oh no, multiply. How does that look? Okay, that's taken away a bit more. What we can do, I want to have a look and see how we can change these layers. So if we want, I'm going to bring down the glossiness actually. The specular, we want high. Oh, diffuse, turn that off. That's what's going wrong here. So how is this making this glossiness look? Need it a bit more powerful. So we're gonna bring up balance. Okay, maybe a bit more. Okay. I'm really not liking how it's like this. So we are going to have to do a little trick. Because what I want to do, I want to add some height information using these scratches. So if I do that now, bring it down. Oh, not too much. A little bit down. I want that to affect a bit more on the front. I'm going to change it to screen. Change the texture to screen. Or linear dodge. Linear dodge. Oh, no, that's a bit too much. Screen. Okay. Bring the opacity down a bit. And we're going to bring the opacity of the curvature down. Make this more of a softly mixed situation. Okay. It's looking interesting. It's looking interesting. See how the 2D texture looks. Okay. It's just a little detail, but I like getting it correct. So let's have a look. Specular again. I think I want some more details in here. So I'm going to add another. I'm going to repeat the dirt. Add another dirt, just so we can add some more, bit more grungy details, but in a bit more detail. So we're going to go into the dirt, and I don't want ambient occlusion this time. We're going to work with curvature this time. We're going to change it from edges to cavities. Go to the mask. There we go. Cavities. So there we go. You can see it's all in the cavities there. This one we are going to just want to blur it. Blur it. Yes, I think that'll do. And some bit more shading. Ooh. I think it's a bit too much on the front here, but I do like it back here. So because it's a bit too much on the front, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a paint bit, and I am just going to go in with a brush in the 2D bit. Make sure I've got it set to black, and make sure it's nice and blurred. Hardness set to 0. We're just going to go in to each bit. Oh. Turn the glass down, and I'm just going to I'm going to change that, make it bigger, make the brush bigger a bit. Like that, just like that. One little tap in each center bit, because maybe two, that'll do. Because when you're working in Substance Painter, I often do forget myself, but you can just go in and paint manually, paint in details, and mask away things using a brush, especially if you're using a tablet. I'm not using a tablet right now, I'm just using a mouse. But if you have a tablet, you can very much treat Substance Painter a bit like ZBrush, a bit like Photoshop, wherein you can use a tablet, go in with a pen, stylus, and properly add in some of your own bespoke details. But for now, I'm just going in for the easiest stuff. Okay, I think that's every single one. Yeah, so what I'm going to do, all those bits are painted out. I'm just going to bring them back in just a tad, just a little bit. Okay, let's have a look back. So I think this is looking quite good. I'm liking how this is looking. I'm liking this. Okay, so now that we've got our first sort of texture, we've got a material looking good. For the purposes of this tutorial, we're just going to leave it like this, and I'm going to talk a little bit about specular and glossiness, normal maps, that sort of thing, going from Substance Painter to Second Life. So if I cycle through, we've got the diffuse. That's okay, we're not going to be using this. We're going to be exporting a properly lit version. Now here we've got the specular map. Okay, so when you go into Second Life, the specular, the lighting model that it uses is quite basic. It's not the best, but we've got to work with what we got. So the basics of how it works is you apply the specular and glossiness maps, and they control how the light reflects off the object. The specular is how bright the reflections are. The glossiness is how blurry or sharp they are. Okay? A lot of people don't realize, but you can use glossiness maps. Some people think it's just specular and normal because that's all there is on the drop downs. But there is a trick that you can do in Photoshop where you set the glossiness map as the alpha map, so the transparency of the normal map, and that drives the glossiness. Then also in the specular map, if you're using a TGA, you can set the, in the same way, you can set the glossiness map or any other map, depends, as the alpha, and that drives the environment reflection. I don't tend to use that because it never ends up looking good, but I normally put it into the alpha of the specular. I normally put the glossiness map into the alpha of the specular just so I can play in world. It doesn't have any effect if you don't go in Second Life and turn on the environment reflection when you apply the textures. So I add it just in case I want it. Okay, so you've got the specular map. Here you've got, it's nice and brighter, so that means it's going to reflect a bit more. Here a bit less. Inside, where it's all nice and dark, where we wouldn't expect it, where it's a bit more dirty. Underneath, where it's dirtier, we wouldn't expect it to reflect, so it's darker. Glossiness, same sort of thing. Where it's brighter, the reflections are sharper. Where it's black, the reflections are duller. So where it gets all dusty, where it's been touched, where dust is collected over the years, it's a lot more duller. Now we could add some more details onto this, but in Second Life it doesn't tend to get that detailed. Sometimes what I could do is on the top add a bit of a dust layer where you've got fingerprints and such, but in Second Life the textures are not going to show up that much detail. So for the purposes of Second Life, I think this is okay. So what we're going to do, I am just going to set up my Ambient Occlusion Map over on the shadow layer, just so it exports with it. I set it as the diffuse, select Ambient Occlusion. There we go. So we're going to export the textures. We're going to File, export textures. We're going to work on bringing this into Second Life. Okay, so I'm just going to choose a folder, sideboard. I'm going to go images, make a folder, sideboard, maps. Okay, select your folder you want to go things in. Now, I'm going to start off by outputting the maps that we're going to import into Second Life to control the materials and such. So we don't need diffuse, we need specular, we need glossiness, we don't need height, we do need normal, and we don't need any of these. So whether you started with the PBR specular glossiness template or any other one, all you've got to make sure that you're exporting is specular, glossiness, normal. That's all you need. You do that for all of the texture sets other than your shadow. The shadow, I'm only going to need to export the diffuse. If you haven't been catching on, if you want to deselect multiple, you just click and drag through all the check marks and it gets rid of all of them. So we're going to export these 13 textures. Alrighty, welcome back. So we are into Photoshop and we're going to load up our maps. If I find the folder, our maps. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to load up the glossiness, normal, specular, glossy, normal, specular, glossy, normal, specular, glossy, normal, specular. Don't want the shadow for now. We're going to start working with the glossiness, the normal, and the specular maps. So as I explained in the previous bit, give it a moment to load up. Come on. Okay, so as I explained in the previous bit, what we want to do, we want to take the glossiness map and put it into the alpha channel of the specular and the normal. So we're going to start off over here, glossiness. We're going to go Control-A, Control-C to copy, go back to the specular, create a new channel down in the... I've got it in French. I've got my Photoshop in French, but if you've got it in English, down here you'll normally have layers, channels, paths. Go into channels, or for me, couche, create une nouvelle couche, a new channel, and we're going to just Ctrl-Z or Command-Z if you're on a Mac computer, right into there, and basically that file's ready for Second Life. You can go either File, Save As, or in French, Fichier enregistré, Control, or just Control-Shift-S, I believe. Then go down to the type, select Targa, and save. Apologies for it being in French. I didn't even think about that. I have my computer all in French to help me learn, since I'm living in Paris learning French at the moment. So that one's done. We've still got that copied. We're going to go to the normal map. Do again, just repeat. Repeat again, Control-Shift-S, Targa, save. So I've got this down to a bit of an automatic process, so we're going to go through it one more time. Glossiness, Control-A, Control-C. Go to specular. New channel, paste. Control-Z for paste. Go back to the RBG. Then Control-Shift-S to save as. Targa, enter, sorted. Go to normal. Go to the normal. Do the same thing, new channel, paste, back up there, Control-Shift-S, save, sorted. And ta-da, there's all your specular and normal maps ready to import into Second Life. Now what we're going to do, we're going to set up the shadow. Now, I'm not going to go too much into this, since I'm not covering the mesh creation, but what I normally do, I create a plane that will catch the shadow, and what we've got to do to make that work in Second Life, we've got to take this ambient occlusion map that I've just loaded up, we've got to turn it into a alphaed TGA file. So what I normally do, I start off by going Control-L to go to levels. Okay, this is a level, in French, niveau, but this will come up with levels. You can go over here and you've got a little color picker option. You pick the white one, and you pick, what I do, I just go towards the edge, just like here, and that will bring the edges to white, because remember, white shows and black doesn't. We're going to inverse this at the end, okay? But for now, just think, where it's the brightest, it's not going to show for now, and then we're going to invert it and it will be as normal. So we got this just to bring in the edges a bit, because we need it to be as close as possible to pure white. I'm going to go to my brush, or press B for the brush. I'm going to set the foreground color to complete white. Up here, I'm just going to go, hold down my left mouse, hold down Shift, go across, and just whiten out that bit. I'm going to do the same down at the bottom down here, whiten down all that, and then I'm going to, using the sort of squared bracket keys, oh, can't do that, I've got the keyboard set in French, set it back to English. So using the sort of squared bracket keys, I'm going to bring the brush down to about this size. I'm going to go to the upper corner, do the same thing, hold down the left mouse button, or with a stylus, hold down, press Shift, drag down, do that a couple times just to be sure, and then we're going to do exactly the same on the left side. Left, click, Shift, up, down, okay? So this, if you go into the color picker, you can see if we select down here, it's all going to come out along the edge as FF, oh, it's not close enough to the edge, but you want it to be FFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFFfffffffffffffffffffffffffffffffffffffffffffffffffffffffffffffffffffffffff That means this white bit is going to show the shadow and the black is not. So where it's white, you have shadow. Where it's black, you haven't. I'm going to go Control A, Control C, create a new channel just like we did. This creates the alpha, paste it in there, and then back to the RGB. We're going to fill with black, and just because we don't need a lot of detail in this, I'm going to go up to image size, and I'm going to bring this all the way down to 512, the sort of smallest practical SL texture size that you can have. And I'm going to set it as that, give it a moment to load, and then just make sure it still looks okay. Zoom in. Yeah, we're still looking good. Ctrl-Shift-S, we know this by now. We're going to save this as well as the TGA file. Save. Save again. Make sure it's set to 32-bit or you will not have the alpha transparency and all that good stuff. So that's done. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, we're going to cut to Second Life and I'm going to show you how to apply these textures to your object. Cool. Hello, welcome back. Okay, so we're now in Second Life. Again, interface is in French. Sorry about that. I'll try to remember what everything is in English. So we got to upload our textures first of all. I'm going to go to Build. I believe this is Upload, and then you choose Bulk. Okay, open that up. There we go. Find the folder that your images are hiding in. Here it is, Sideboard Maps. And you pick the ones you want. So I want the TGA. I'll look out for TGA, 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 TGA. And then I want all the 2D view ones, so it's still PNGs. Those are all just the main diffuse texture. I'm going to upload all of those. Okay, yep, $130 Linden, go for it. Just going to wait for those to upload. I'll skip forward. Okay, we're back. We've got our textures uploaded. So when we're just dealing with the diffuse ones, we can just drag and drop. So let's start with the front. Let's apply that. Let's do the walls, the top and the bottom, doorknobs, etc. And I believe hiding underneath here is the shadow. I'll turn off the highlight there. So here we go. One moment. I forgot to texture the glass in the Substance Painter part of the tutorial. Maybe I'll do that as part of another one, but for now I'm just going to set it to transparent so we can see the inside. Okay, here we go. So this is just standard diffuse maps for our sideboard. Now we're going to start adding the normal and specular maps. So we've got the top and the bottom. First of all, we're going to apply the normal to normal, and then apply the specular under specular. Oop! So it comes in a bit blurred first of all, so it really highlights. But when the texture loads, there you go. That's going to be a bit more detailed. So. Okay, so what I'm going to do, it comes in automatically at 51. I like setting it to 150 first of all to see how it looks. And just save this camera angle. If you didn't know, on FastStorm you can save a camera angle by clicking on that. So we're going to have a little look around, see how that looks. So got a nice bit of reflection. Feels a bit powerful for my liking, so we're going to try 120. Okay, that softens it out a bit, so we're looking at something a bit more glossy there. Okay, and it also depends with what sort of lights you've got around. Let's try the top. How's the top look? Okay. Going to bring it down a little bit more. 100. Oh, no. 100. So there, we've got much more of a glossy look going on. We can see the normal details. Lovely. Let's apply to the rest. So, I'm going to go for the walls. Start with the specular. What did I set that to? Make sure it's all the same. Set it to 100, so we're going to set this to 100 as well. I'll set the normal. That's the glossiness map. Okay. I'm going to go through the rest quickly, and then we can do a few more adjustments. 100. Oof, that came up quite bright. Good lord. And the knobs. There we go. Calm down a bit once the glossiness map kicked in from the normal. So go into specular. Going to go a bit higher with this. I'm going to start off at 175 since it is metallic. We want it to be a bit more powerful. And we're going to put the gloss. We're going to put the normal and the glossiness map, I suppose. So that should be all of them. That's applied. That's applied. That's applied. Okay, so we can see how the normal maps have more of an effect, how the specular map has a much more of an effect where the glossiness map was brighter. Okay, if we zoom in on the doorknobs, let's give them some attention. So they're quite bright, but I know the lighting setup I've got right now is quite bright. So we're gonna do a little test, change the lighting setup to just a standard midnight. See how it looks just under the projector lights I've got set up. Okay, so I think overall it is looking a bit too reflective. So rather than having to go out of Second Life and edit the texture, what you can do, I'm going to select all of the faces I want to adjust. Go to color under specular. You can just bring this down towards, oh no, don't drag the window. Bring down the color. There we go. Bring it down a bit. Just gonna, there we go. If we put it around midway, that calms down the specular reflections so that they're not as bright. So it's just a hint of reflection. Keep it all nice and realistic. So there we go. We've got a finished textured object here for you. A nice little sideboard. You can very easily go into Photoshop and work on different color variations, but I prefer to do it in Substance Painter. But yeah, there you go. Okay, sorry about the video quality of the last bit in Second Life. Turns out the video recording software didn't quite like me having advanced lighting, materials, and all that on Second Life running, so it was a bit choppy. I hope I managed to explain everything well enough so that you understood. But yeah, I've just popped a screenshot there, just so that I don't go all buffering. Thank you for watching. I hope everyone enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions or requests for other tutorials, leave them in the comments below. Leave a like, subscribe, all that stuff that YouTubers tell you to do, blah, blah, blah. You know the drill, If you're watching this before Saturday, don't forget to pop on down to the ChiMia main store to grab this sideboard, hopefully in some different color texture options, along with some other products, including, I believe I've got a few paintings, some nice little stuff to go on the sideboard. Should be lovely. Not my paintings, but yeah. Oh, on that point, any creators out there, little tip. The Met Museum in New York, they have got a wonderful archive resource online. Basically, you can go in there. It's called Open Access. You can search for any work on there. And if it's in the public domain, you're allowed to download it and use their scans of the artwork as you wish to create art. So good for Second Life. And yeah, I think that's everything. I hope you've enjoyed. Have a lovely day. Bye.